I love you guys.
Dance off, bro. I have the high ground.
Expecto Patronum!
39 days, 20 people, 1 survivor.
Tribe of Nerds.
It is like deja vu, but everything's different. You know, it's like all these new connections. There's champion swimmers, champion footy players, champion rugby league players, Olympians, Nova and Steve. But they're all old, and I think that people are just going to be naturally drawn to ET. He's going to be like the leader of the old people, you know? Like the guy who gives out the wrinkle cream.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Tribe of Nerds. Here's our follow-up podcast to our interview with Dirty Harry, which if you missed it by this point that this podcast is coming out, you should go check that out and then check this out because we're going to be using insight from that interview on this podcast. So Matt, Michael, and I are going to talk about Season 4, Champions versus Contenders 2, such a fan favorite theme that the producers wanted to do it again immediately afterwards. So what are your guys' thoughts on the cast and the theme being used again in this season?
I'll let you go first, Michael.
Everything about the first season, but better. The cast is spectacular. This is one of my all-time favorite seasons. So many amazing players. You get Luke coming back as a returning player. You have the Golden God ascending. You have Dirty Harry coming out to play. Just across the board, this cast just delivered, and it's one of the best seasons of all time.
Yep.
I definitely agree with that. This is like what I want Hollywood to do. They always reboot good things. But what they should do is what Australian Survivor did, is reboot something that was a good idea, but wasn't that great, and then just make it better. That is what this season is. This season is top tier, and no spoilers, but I feel like this is going to be a top 15 season when we go through your rankings, Jake.
Yeah, my rankings. Yeah, we will definitely get to those, and I think this is going to be a good, very highly ranked season because it is very good. There are some gripes, but we'll get to that as we go. But otherwise, it's
you can just say Simon's name. It's fine.
Well, and the edit that we'll get to that the producers decided was good to leave in as it was for some people. All right, so here we go. Let's get into starting from episode 1. So we get to see Luke come back, and again, like, if you're thinking of people to bring back from the first 3 seasons that haven't won, like, Luke is definitely top of the list, even above probably the 3 winners. So, like, I mean, it was so good to see Luke back, and we knew he was going to be back as soon as they could get him back.
Because it's definitely Luke number 1. Then I would go Zach, and then Stevie, and then I'm just glad that we got Luke back first.
Yeah, yep. I mean, in all seriousness, instead of Zach or Stevie, like, I mean, the only other ones that you could say, I mean, like Matt Rogers, definitely in there. I would say Nick was in there. Henry probably. So I mean, like, all those players are also going to come back. So
and then maybe AK. I can also see AK because
AK and Phoebe. Yeah, I would say those 2 as well. So. But yeah, no, I mean, this is a good premiere episode. Starts off with that really physical challenge, which is really fun. You get immediately Grayson Waller talking a lot of smack.
Yeah, buddy, that's my boy.
You could definitely tell when it came to the challenges that he brought out the wrestling bravado. Like him just marching around being like, champions, eh?
God, it's so funny too. Then, like, he beats Luke, right? Or
yeah, several times in this season.
Yeah. They have this interesting rivalry that we'll talk about throughout, like, a lot of this pre-merge. So,
but before we continue, one thing we haven't talked about yet is the opening which this is like the first one of Australian Survivor where it's like that epic one. You have all the champions going through the water. Everything is like, I love that stuff, especially next week when we talk about All Stars. That's one of my favorite intros ever.
Yeah, I love these intros. I mean, I just like the way they do these, and like it just is like a cinematic experience for Survivor, and I do love that. I love like the clip that I shared in there, but like where Luke is just coming out of the water and like it's so good. Like it's I don't care how like maybe corny it seems to some people, but I love it. So
Yeah, they're definitely really cheesy, but in the best possible way.
Yeah.
It's just so much fun.
yeah. Yep. And then we get the intro packages for players as well that we got last season, which is nice to see like glimpses into their real lives and like who they are. Of course, not everybody's going to get those, but we get to see people like Andy, who says that he will be the greatest player of all time and get invited back for all winners and all this other stuff. So.
I mean, he was pretty close. I mean, I think he may be onto something there.
Andy during Winners at War would have been something.
He would have been like the Adam Klein of that season, probably.
Oh,
just total chaos.
Yep, I can totally see him as an Adam type player.
So I kind of when it comes to Andy, like I feel like he got a bit of a raw deal where he's clearly a super fan, and they really used his auditions against him. And when you're auditioning, I mean, I auditioned for Survivor UK. That's what you do. You go out there and you talk a big game and you sell yourself. You're trying to get cast on a TV show. So like, I don't know if necessarily he thinks all these things legitimately, but he's trying to get on this show that he loves, and it's the only one where they constantly come back to him like and use it as like a running joke about how he's not what he was promised he was going to be. It's like, yeah, he was trying to get cast. I kind of feel bad for Andy a little bit with his edit.
Yeah, I'll say with Andy, like I feel bad that he got such a raw deal on Australian Survivor, and I mean we'll get to his very short blood versus water journey later, but like I don't know. It sucks when like super fans get that raw deal that when they've been like dreaming for this their entire lives or their entire time watching the show. And so,
and much like Eden in the most recent season, he makes it to merge but doesn't make it to jury, which again just sucks as the super fan. Like, stop doing that. Merge should equal jury.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, also Eden got screwed even more because there were a couple of eliminations before the jury even started after merge. Whereas Andy, like he only had to survive one vote and he couldn't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and like, so I wanted to be fair to Andy. I do think he's a very sloppy player, though, as we've said. Like, it's just, but I mean, we'll talk about that more as we go. But, so then the Champions Tribe dynamics that we get to see very well in these like first 6 episodes. We get to see the formation of the Sporty Seven with Stephen Bradbury taking control. And my favorite confessional of this episode is probably Luke saying about like E.T. and Steven, like the old people are running the tribe and they should have like wrinkle cream or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think Steven should be the leader of anything because as we've seen in the Olympics, he's not a good leader. So
yeah,
he's good if he comes from behind and then becomes first place. So from what I can tell about Steven's style, I don't know how much of a fan he was, but he seemed to have a basic idea. And I think in his mind, the game of Survivor is just grab 7 people and everyone will stick with you and there'll be no drama. Because it doesn't feel like he worked on those relationships at all.
No.
He just grabbed 7 sports people and we're like, we have something in common here. Let's stick together.
Yeah.
Yes. I feel like you may have watched the first season, Borneo, where you just feel like where you get the numbers and then you just stick with it until the end. I think that may be where he was at. Because in 2000, he was also busy weighing some gold medals. So.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not really a big fan of Stephen Bradbury. It's fun when the cast and even JLP clown on him instead. So, any other thoughts before we get to like the immunity challenge and the tribal here?
No, I'm good.
I don't want to just talk about Andy for 3 hours, but
Yeah,
we also
Challenge
get
beast,
Andy.
Andy.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so he has that amazing challenge against DT.
yeah.
But what I was going to mention was he also comes up with a fake job, which doesn't really make sense when your actual job isn't something that's threatening in the game of Survivor. It's like he's just making up a fake job for the sake of making up a fake job.
Yeah, yeah, I don't like it when people make up the fake jobs. Like I get it in some cases, like it's funny when it's like Gary Hogaboom being Gary Hawkins in Guatemala. Because I guess that makes sense because like yeah, at that time in Survivor history, I get it for Gary to do that. I just don't get it for Andy because what exactly did he do again? Because he lied. He was like a golf. He was marketing for golf and sports and things like that, but he's actually something else.
Yeah, I think it was like some kind of freelance marketing or something,
Yeah.
and he pretended to be a writer.
Okay,
So
yeah.
you're saying no to fake jobs, but yes to fake sons, right?
Yes.
Okay, fake sons I
Yeah.
will
Fake
allow,
sense. Yes.
but fake jobs I just feel is unnecessary. I mean, you can just tell your real job because like again, eventually you're probably gonna get called out for doing something like trying to make up a fake job because I mean we saw it with so far in the first four seasons we've seen Henry literally lie about being a yoga instructor instead of just a laborer, and like Henry literally gets called on it multiple times in the season and it loses trust with some people.
I do think sometimes it does make sense, like depending on what your job is.
Yeah.
Right.
Like we saw it with Tony and Kagayan, and
Oh yeah.
there's a bunch of examples where
All the
their actual
lawyers,
jobs, like lawyers or
yeah,
like
all the lawyers of 45.
yeah,
That's true. I forgot about all them.
Yeah. If I ever go on Survivor, I'm just going to be like Jam and Kenzie say I'm a hairstylist because I can pull it off as you can see. So
Yeah. So yeah, Andy, as he proves, is really good, especially at throwing challenges. So like he throws something, he can hit these targets. So I will give him credit for
well,
that as well.
spoiler warning, but he may not be so good at throwing challenges in a later episode. So
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, so the contenders win the first immunity challenge, and then the champions go to tribal, and it's going to be Pia who gives the confessional of I'm either the winner or the first one gone. And
when do you think that confessional was filmed?
good point. Who knows?
I don't
Because
know.
it's so set up, like I mean it's a perfect confessional that bookends the
Yeah.
season. Spoiler alert, Peter ends up winning. And it's one of those ones where your conspiracy theory hat comes on where it's like maybe this was filmed like way later.
Yeah. I can also see her saying that before the game even started, like just she's
Possibly, yeah.
for it, because she is pretty famous in Australia, so I could see that being like one thing where they just want her out.
Yeah, and I mean you think on it, I mean Australian Survivor loves to like take confessionals and randomly put them in places even if they're like because I remember season one, like I think it's like in the middle of the merge and I think Brooke gets she gets her letter from home in that season and it literally takes her back to like day one when she looks like she hasn't lost any weight and it's like clearly she's makeup on or whatever before the game and it just looks completely different to how she actually looks in the game right now. So they love to do that.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting that early champions tribe Pia and Janine going into the next episode are kind of the two early targets for people to go who become two of the key players of the season and one the eventual winner.
Yep. Yeah, it's really interesting to look at that and these first few episodes. But it is supposed to be Pia that's 47 are targeting. Nova switches it to Anastasia, which is crazy. Because Anastasia proved to be pretty decent in the challenges so far in this first episode. And then she just gets targeted because she disagrees with Nova about cooking, is how the show frames it. And
Also, why is Anastasia not a part of that group? Because she's like ballet. That's still sport.
right.
Is it? Where's that in the Olympics? Tell me that, Michael.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I
Okay.
think it qualifies as sport.
I think
Really
so.
like that.
Yeah.
I really like that desperate confessional she gives where she's like, "Look at my knees. My knees are so red. Look at Nova's knees. There's not a scratch in sight."
Yeah, yeah. I feel bad for her because I feel like Anastasia is a player that could have done well in other seasons, and it's just like she just ends up getting
Yeah.
taken out right away. So, even though Luke tries to save her, but it doesn't work, and so she is first boot. Any other thoughts on Anastasia here?
We hardly knew, yeah.
Yeah. I totally forgot she got eliminated first. I don't even have that in my notes. So I was like, I forgot who got eliminated first. So
Yep, yep. All right. So then we get to episode 2, and this is where Luke finds the clue in the raft, which is a cool place to hide an idol, a little secret compartment in the raft. Australia loves their secret compartments.
yeah. Well, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is also the episode where there's Spy Shack 2.0 for
Yes.
Luke.
Yeah, bringing it back. And immediately, I did want to say also that the contenders immediately are like, when Daisy's like the Spy Shack dude, and it's just
Yeah.
funny. Knowing that Luke took it from Tony, because I believe Luke only watched Kagyan right before his first season, and then that's why he did the Spy Shack because he saw Tony do it.
That
I
explains
mean,
so much how similar their games are. Wow.
Yes. Yep.
there's worse people that you could take notes from.
Yep. And Luke can pull it off because he definitely has a similar, I guess, charm
Yeah.
to Tony. So,
Yeah.
um,
I really like the little thing of him just holding the smallest leaf possible in front of his face and being
Yeah.
like,
so good. Um, so then on the contenders, basically it ends up being between Laura and Baden, the two smallest people on the tribe. And originally Grayson Waller wants to target Baden. Something that I do like from him, and I guess we can talk about the challenges too in a minute, but something I do like is that like originally he's wanting Baden gone, but then when he realizes that Laura is like has multiple people want to target Laura, that he's just like, okay, I'm willing to give Baden another shot here in the game and votes for Laura. I do like that from him a lot.
we also get our kind of introduction package to Baden where he's talking about feeling a bit like an outcast and not being on the same level as the rest of the tribe in terms of being social and making connections, which is an important confessional and video because obviously Baden will go on a hell of a journey throughout this season.
Yeah.
And like Baden in episode 1-2 is almost unrecognizable from the chatty Baden we get at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah. In my notes, especially after watching the Champions versus Contenders 1, I put Baden as the discount Sam from last season.
That's harsh.
Right.
Well, I mean, on the first couple episodes, yeah, it felt that way.
Yeah, but I mean, I think Sam was better ingratiated immediately than Baden. But anything else from episode 2? I mean, we can discuss the challenges.
Well, the only thing I have for the challenges is this is the mud challenge where they're trying to carry a box as it gets weighed down. And in my notes, I put fuck this challenge because that looked brutal.
Yeah, it was a really tough challenge.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I'm surprised any of them finished it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because after like maybe like even 10 minutes in that mud, it's gonna be almost impossible to move that box.
Yeah, the
I really liked how sorry,
I was just gonna say that.
I really liked how David kind of pulled it together for the champions, where he just got everyone to stop. Like everyone was just exhausting themselves, so they just took a minute to. They just needed to get it up on that lip, so they took a minute to catch their breath and have one big push at it.
Yep. Yeah. It was cool. But yeah, I mean, and then we can talk about what Harry revealed to us and the Cash Money Alliance that was not seen on the show, because they didn't give Sam any content at all, and they hardly give Casey any. So like, it's interesting, like thinking of that and how it like recontextualizes this, the contenders here.
Yeah. And so and also kind of that Andy and Harry relationship, which we see in this first and only tribal that Contenders go to, but their relationship doesn't really come up all that much from there. They were clearly together, but it never really progressed past. They obviously went apart in the tribe swap, and then they come together at merge, and he's the first vote, and everyone votes for him. But yeah, this is where Harry kind of, and I really like how Andy plays this, actually, where this is going to be a podcast of me defending Andy, I feel like. I like that Andy sees that Harry is the one driving this vote and trying to get the numbers onto Laura, and just kind of pushes Harry to the front. And I think Andy's early game is really smart, and then he starts to fall into the traps that he was actively avoiding in the early game.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I think most of Andy's game falls apart at the swap, so but he's pretty good here. Anything else? We have Laura getting booted here.
This is a debut of Harry's confidence stick, and where he chooses it in the honor of Nick, which I hope he doesn't do that anymore.
Nick Wilson to
yes. Nick Wilson, yes. Nobody touched Australian legend Nick Iadanza.
Yeah, we won't. So anything on Laura? Are we ready to hit episode 3?
Just like the show, I got nothing for Laura.
I like Harry's reasoning for wanting to take her out is because she has a hat that screams mob boss.
It was so good. All right, episode 3. This is a big one, and we get Ross and Nova fighting over bananas. And of course, Luke finds the idol with David, and you get the really goofy Luke and David dance scene. And yeah, then this is where Abby and Ross flip and help blindside Susie and send her swimming back to Australia, as Luke says. So, any other thoughts on episode 3?
Yeah, the return of banana etiquette, which is a recurring issue that Survivor has. Don't take more bananas than you're allowed.
Yep.
My big no on this episode is, what are the tides like on this beach? Because there'll either be water like right next to the camp, or it will be like almost like a half mile out. It's like, what are these tides? Like, I've never been to Australia. I want to go, but it's just like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, I don't know.
It wasn't filmed in Australia.
You're right. Good point. I meant to say
Samoa.
No, Fiji.
Fiji.
This one was This one was
because I think they did Samoa for like the first 2 seasons, and then they switched.
Yeah.
First two. Yeah. And then also in this episode, this is when the Contenders win the reward, and John decides to divvy it up.
Yep, and he gives Sean the tweezers.
And Daisy being like, what a stitch up.
Oh, Jono.
Yeah, do we want to touch on Jono at this point? I mean, I think just as a character, John Easto is really fun. I think he's like decent as a player, and the fact that he is a really likable guy, and like he's not like glaringly bad at anything. It's just like, I don't know. As a strategist, I don't think he has all the strategic tools to win the game or anything, but he's a great presence on this season, and I'm okay with him being an all-stars as well.
Yeah. From looking at his Fury Villa, he wasn't a fan of Survivor coming in, so it was a new experience for him. And yeah, his biggest asset is his social skills, and just a likable dude that everyone got on with.
Right. And he goes naked a lot, which is fun.
Yeah, I have that in my note. He goes naked. Will never happen on US Survivor.
Nope.
Yeah, my first note for episode 3 is naked John. On episode 3 as well, another bit I really like is in the challenge. You get this quite wholesome moment between Matt and Baden, where Baden wins the point for his team, and Matt's kind of shouting, "That's why you're here." Yeah, it's just a really sweet moment, especially coming off Baden's insecurities in the previous episode.
Yeah, yep, I love this too. I mean, and this is coming off as well of Matt giving Baden another chance to do this, and then being like, it reaffirms Matt's decision to keep Baden in the game.
So. And then just a clarification for anybody who's listening who doesn't know, Matt becomes Grayson Waller in the WWE, so that's why his name is being air changed. Just so
Yes.
people know.
Yep. Just that's a good disclaimer. All right. So Susie goes, not much on Susie either. I mean, this season really starts off, the women don't do very well in this season.
Yeah, because it's the first season where 4 women go back to back.
Yep. And I believe CVC1 was 4 men going back to back.
Yeah, I think it's
So, which is just interesting. All right. So Susie gets flipped on, and episode 4. So a lot happens in this episode. This is where we get David's fake idol, because Janine finds the one, like the transferable one on her tribe. And so they plan to David makes a fake one, and they plan to give it to someone, which we'll find out is Sean next episode. But presumably because they see that Sean is the biggest physical presence on that tribe. So, which is going to start a fun rivalry there. And then the champions lose yet again, and we get Stephen Bradbury calling Abby weak for flipping.
Before we'll talk about that towards the end of this episode discussion, but before I get to that, you also get my first note, which is Towers of Terror equals trauma.
That's right. And this is one of my this is one of my favorite moments in the season, of just Grayson and John helping Sarah try to get over her fear, and then she can't do it, but it's still like a great moment, especially with Grayson yelling from the platform. It's like, you can do this, I know you have it. And he was like, damn it, man, I love you.
Yeah. I forgot about Sarah. Like, so she does have the storyline of being the tsunami survivor, and like her having this moment on the Tower of Terror. I just feel like that, at least she gets something. I mean, I guess she's the second contender woman with like the most content in her episodes besides Daisy. So
I think this is one of 2 challenges that she's made to go through, which are kind of fucked up. And also they were down, they had 1 extra player. They were able to sit someone out, and Casey jumped on that immediately and was like, I'm going to sit out. It's like, you have someone that's been through something genuinely traumatic, and you're going to sit out. Why?
And she's happy about it. She's like very, very happy about it. And I'm just like, why are you so happy?
Like, it makes for this big, I don't know, TV moment, but I mean, it's coming from someone's real trauma, and it could have been avoided if they just let her sit out. And there's another challenge later on that's very similar. It's like, this poor woman, she went through hell.
Yeah, because I had this in my notes, but I think I mixed up this with like one of the episode 6 challenges where it's also on a very high tower. So,
but also in this episode, so after the the champions win, they take John on the reward, which also talks about how likable he is, and then like he basically like tells she is his childhood crush. It's like, ooh, don't say childhood crush like that. I mean,
oh, it's so funny. Also we should mention, because Pia is an actress, I believe JLP actually played a role in one of her films as like her dad or something.
JLP's brother, who is Anthony LaPaglia, played her dad.
Oh, okay.
ALP.
Yeah, ALP. ALP.
Yeah. So we get the where am I? We get Steve calling Abby weak, as you said, but I don't know. I'm kind of on Steve's side. I don't think he did mean it like that. I think he was calling her excuse weak, and I do feel like Steve has some grounds to be annoyed. Like they did have an alliance, and she flipped on that, and I felt like they were just discussing it. I don't think it was this big targeted attack that it was made out. And then you have David and Luke running down the beach and kind of really throwing Steve to the wolves. And I feel like Steve was obviously at the bottom and they were piling on him. But I don't think it was as bad as they were trying to make it out.
I get that. I don't know. I mean, I get that Steve's voicing his opinion too, I think. And like you said, it's not necessarily what he means. I mean, I don't know. I just probably wouldn't necessarily, go up to somebody and,
Yeah.
allude that they were weak in any way. Especially to someone like Abby, like prides herself on being like an athlete and strong in a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I just
Yeah.
think it was like a misread socially on Steve's part.
I like it how last week Michael was all in on like dissing Zach and Stevie, and then this week he's defending Andy and Steven. It's just like a nice little turnaround, man.
I think they're very different.
I
don't
do
know.
too, but it's just
Yeah.
I need to make fun of somebody.
I don't know. I see Steve's point of view, but he definitely plays badly. So when I talked earlier about how he had seemed to just get 7 people and not follow up those relationships, we kind of get confirmation of that at the tribal council before, where he says, Abby and I really haven't talked, but we remedied that today. It's like you're in an alliance with her.
Yeah,
And
you need to talk like almost every day.
yeah, like he did just get his numbers and then it imploded quite easily. I don't think Luke and David and Pia Janine had to do too much really to pull people in.
Right. Yep. And so this is where Nova gets voted out. She stands up for Steve, and then everybody just I don't know if I'm guessing they came in with the plan to do Nova anyway and keep Steven around as like I guess just like an easy vote the next round. But like I don't know. Then the way the show makes it seem is that Nova was like a switch at tribal council, but I don't think that was the case.
My theory is that Nova was Ross's condition for flipping.
Yep. Yeah.
I think Ross wanted Nova, so they were just willing to go with the name that.
Right. That makes sense. That would definitely make sense. And you have crocodile tears coming up because Nova says Abby's crying crocodile tears, and then David puts it on this voting parchment. Oh, it's so good. All right. Anything else on episode 4?
Nah, I think we're good.
All right.
Nova's kitchen is closed for business.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, episode 5. So this is another big one. I did want to mention JLP's comment to Steve.
Yes.
Steve skates through again.
Yep. So good, and I love everybody's reaction to that too. I think you said this in our chat where this is like the first time JLP did one of those like big closing lines, and it really shows.
Yep, I really think this is where JLP starts to really come into his own with his wittiness compared to like Jeff Probst. Like it just works. I love JLP's exit lines like from this point forward. I'm sure there's a lot of other good ones as we go through the rest of the seasons.
And JLP's innuendos and challenges are just the best.
Yeah,
I think we'll get to some of them.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
But jumping ahead slightly, but there's a fantastic one in All Stars.
Yep. Oh, I know which one it is. So, I feel like he says that in multiple seasons too.
He does.
All right. So episode 5, this is where David swaps the fake idol with Sean. Sean has found an idol himself as well. Right, or the transferable one for the Contenders. And so
and he finds it with Daisy too, which is always my worst fear if I'm ever on Survivor, is I finally find an idol and then somebody's right there.
Yep.
That will happen to Daisy multiple times.
Yes.
Sometimes even with it in her hand.
Yeah. Well, we'll save that for when we get there.
Yeah. And so David does swap the idol, which is a very ballsy thing to do here. Again, this whole move is very ballsy. This arguably, like, as crazy awesome as it is to watch and fun, like, it arguably does set up David for his downfall later in the game because it breaks trust with multiple people.
And it can really only backfire unless if you just hope Sean gets voted out real quick. That's the only that's the only high end.
Yeah, which isn't going to happen.
We also get the birth of an icon with the "I'm a golden god."
Yes, I'm a golden god. Yes. Yep. As my line, my title here in this podcast. But yep. And so then this is where we lose sweet Stephen Bradbury.
Yeah. Before we move on to the vote, though, so yeah, the idol swap, I feel like kind of sums up David as a player, where he's this guy who's just full of doing it for the content. He's just a really charismatic, really entertaining, fun player to watch, but he doesn't necessarily always, at least in his first season, make moves that make sense game-wise. He just tends to do what he wants to do to have fun, basically. Because yeah, this is a complete misfire, and it only serves to have no chance of a relationship between him and Sean. And as a big physical threat in his own right, working with someone like Sean is like he's like the perfect ally. And
Yes,
when we get to their jury villas later, they both have this realization of like, why didn't we work together? This was a chance to just, through tribal lines, make an alliance with someone who was always going to be a target too, and you could work through together. But instead, they just went through this now rivalry where they were always going to be coming for each other.
Yeah, and I think David realizes that and makes the correction in All Stars, or at least tries to make the correction, and it does end up paying off, but not exactly in the way that maybe he hoped it would because of other reasons. But
one other thing I want to touch on this episode before we get to the vote is this is the Fish and Chips reward, which also had another one of my favorite moments of like the magazine where it had the cover of like every champion, and then they give like back, especially Luke's. It's like, man, it's like everybody's so charming.
Yeah, and Luke's with we get the story about his daughter having cystic fibrosis, and so and now we this is going to set up how heartbreaking it is later on when Luke does go. But
Luke is just about the most likable guy. Like he's a fun player to watch, but you just can't help but root for him. He's just a great player and a great person from what we can tell.
Yep. All right, so anything else to say on Stephen Bradbury? All right.
Nope. I've defended enough.
Yeah.
You defended him enough. All right. So then episode 6, this is where we have the other Tower of Terror challenge, and this is where David told everybody, right, that like he played an idol on Pia, and then it gets exposed, like that's why she survived, and that gets exposed at the challenge because what he told Sean that, and then Sean
so what happens is the champions win the reward, then they bring Beta and Sean,
yes,
and then David tells Sean that, and then I forgot who it was of the contenders, maybe it was Casey. Who's like, hey Pia, did David really play an idol? And it's like, no.
God, yeah, so David gets exposed immediately. Oh boy. Yep. This is fun. And so yet again the champions lose, and we lose E.T., the Australian version of Andrew Savage.
Oh yeah.
I like David's confessional about E.T. Go Home.
Yep, damn it, I was about to say that. E.T. Oh, I was like, damn it, David, you are also really charming.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
my first note for this episode is Ross eats the horse, and I don't know what I'm talking about.
Oh, in the challenge where they're where it's like 2 towers and pulling the ropes.
Yes.
He beats Sean.
Yep, beats Sean. That's what it. Yep.
I was like, was I drunk when I wrote this?
I don't know. I mean, I also have that in my notes, so that's the only way that I know that. Because I was amazed that he beat Sean, but it was because Sean like tripped as the challenge was starting, so like Ross had the momentum.
Yep. And I mean, yes, we'll get to Sean being called the horse later on multiple times.
Yep, I definitely have some. I have some jury villa information for that one, which which makes me laugh every time I think about it.
Yep. So, any other thoughts?
One more thing about Ross on this one is, this is when Baden comes over and Ross. It's just such a lovely moment where he's learning about the ionosphere or whatever it was called.
Yeah, the astrological stuff.
He's such a lovable guy, and he has this genuine look of real interest on his face, but clearly has no idea what Baden's talking about, but it's a really sweet moment. I love it.
Ross is amazing. I do love Ross. So anything else about this episode or about ET?
Nah, I think we're good because we don't really know. So
Yeah, well,
just Abby got emotional about voting ET, but that's basically all that really happened.
which is funny because I feel like she gets emotional about multiple other things and is still like good with, playing the game and getting rid of the people she doesn't want to get rid of. So it's funny.
Yeah, she kind of wears a heart on her sleeve.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, it makes her an interesting character. All right. So 6 episodes in, the contenders are down to 7 people. Or contenders are 11, champions are at 7 people. And we get to the swap, and this is where David and Luke end up the only two with 7 contenders. And we basically think they're screwed, and Harry goes over with Sean and Matt and Casey and 5 champions. So
Here we go.
here we go.
Yeah, this is where it gets good.
This is where the fun begins.
Is this the greatest tribe swap?
It
in
makes
Survivor?
it
Because
interesting so far.
yeah, both tribes are fantastic. You have the Luke Davids in the astronomical odds and overcoming that, and then you have Harry doing his Dirty Harry thing over on the new Contenders beach. I think this is like in terms of like a tribe swap, this is just pure content, and every episode's fantastic. Even the non-elimination can't spoil it.
Yeah, I totally agree, because it's like the past 3 seasons. I mean, I feel like the swaps are not as good as they're definitely not as good as this. I mean, season 1 had the very lopsided swap, and then where you lose really a lot of your big players because of it. Season 2 had kind of a late swap. That's where you lose AK, and then season 3 had probably the latest swap, which just it's really, they should have swapped a lot earlier in that season, but this one just happens at the exact right time. So, and it just pans out for the better. So episode 7, what ends up happening is it's the one where they're in like the pairs and they have like to hold the whatever disc thing on their shoulders, whatever you call it. And this is where David and Luke should really be screwed. They both have idols now, but they don't want to have to play both of them. And this is where Andy basically tells everyone that Sean has an idol. And this is where we lose Sam, who clearly should have been on the show, but she gets 0 confessionals, the first person in Survivor history in any version to get no confessionals. And in my opinion, I feel like the show just wanted Sam to be like the attractive woman in a bikini. Like, I just feel like that's pretty much what the show wanted, when we should have gotten more content as to what her actual was.
Clearly
So she is like
player.
So she is like the Purple Kelly, because they only want Purple Kelly just to be in a bikini.
Yeah.
So, but it seems like Sam was at least better from what we've heard.
Yeah, game wise, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's really awful. It should never happen. Like, give everyone something. It really does suck. And like, especially I can't imagine, like, as a huge fan, like if I went out there and played Survivor and then you look forward to seeing it on the TV and you're just not in the show, like, I don't know, it would completely break my heart.
Yeah.
And if you want tips, if you get on the show, what to do, listen to our interview with Harry, who gave us information of what Luke was telling everybody.
Yeah, definitely go listen to that, because as you said. Anything else to say on this round? This is where Andy also flips the coin.
Yes, I was going to ask, is this a good plan? Because I can't tell. Like, it makes sense, but also doesn't. But he also,
it makes no sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense because nobody knows. So, because they only think one of them has an idol, so they don't really know. But he also classifies it by the 3 youngest vote this way and the 3 oldest vote that way, and that just could be like a very confusing way to do it if you've been out there for like 20 days like your mind may forget of like who you're voting for.
Right.
The big sorry, go on, Jake.
No, I was just gonna say if you can't really tell or can't remember who the oldest people are and the youngest, like some people look younger than they actually are too.
Yeah, but and this could also be a way to figure out somebody's a lie, because somebody could be lying about their age.
Right.
You will never know. So.
Right.
But the big problem with this plan is it kind of shows that you don't completely trust your alliance.
Mm-hmm.
It's tipping your hand that you don't trust people to vote and not spill where the vote is going, because you're keeping the final vote secret from your own alliance. So all it's going to do is sow seeds of doubt with people. If they're really strong, then they should all know the plan. It felt like Andy just kind of overcomplicating things and wanting it to be this majestic plan when really it was just overcomplicated. Just do a split vote. It doesn't need a coin toss.
Right.
One other thing about this episode that we haven't talked about is this is the debut of, I believe it's Oscar Hudson Hill, or is that Oscar Nathan?
Yes, we need to talk about the fake son. So
yes, because I just want to say Oscar is more real than whatever that CGI mess was of the baby in Breaking Dawn. I just want to say that right now.
Thank you for another Twilight reference.
No problem. That's what I'm here for.
I didn't even know what he was talking about. I just thought he'd gone mad.
All right. Yeah, so I love the fake son lie. I do. It's different from the fake job thing. I think this is so much fun just to watch, and I love just the confessional again of it's Oscar Hudson Hills. No, wait, it's Oscar Nathan Hills.
Yeah, the name of your fake son really matters. I really, again, this is like just brilliant editing on the show's part, where he's going through and talking about his family, and you get the reactions of the other tribe mates, and you get a confessional from Abby saying like, Harry seems so sweet, he's just a good family man, and then just cut to Harry with the biggest shit-eating grin on his face, just being like, I don't have a son, they haven't realized I'm the bad guy yet. It's fantastic.
Yep. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, so anything else about this episode?
No, I was just going to say that Harry ended up being the better professional wrestler than Grayson did, because he was able to like sell his like promos and be like live up to a character more than Matt did on this show, which is funny because then Grayson becomes a icon, well, not an icon, but like a global superstar in WWE.
Right.
I noticed that this was the start of the Contenders destroying their own game.
Yes.
When they really should have tried to take out one of David or Luke. Also, Andy's incredibly cringeworthy. What would you call it when you hold up the vote? Like confessional? Voting confessional. Yeah. Especially because the plan doesn't work. It's even funnier where he says, and he's clearly planned it, and you can just tell, heads I win, tails you lose.
Yep. So, well, that's going to lead into episode 8, where Andy, now the Contenders do not trust Andy even more. And so this is the Sarah Boot episode, where, again, as we alluded to earlier, they do that challenge where they're just trying to torture this poor woman. And I don't know, like, weren't they like forced to put her in the challenge to like because of like gender reasons, because they had to have like a woman and a man in there, or 2 women, or
no? So it was because she didn't think she was going to be good on the balancing side of, and the stamina side of running backwards and forwards. So it was kind of like it was the right place for her from a kind of team standpoint, but I don't know. And she does really well. It's not like she messes up the challenge. She kills it. Well, they don't win, but she does really well.
Yeah, she does really well. Yeah. Going to the first challenge, I actually kind of like the reward challenge where they just get in like that current, and then they just have to keep swimming. And then Grayson gives me one of my favorite lines of, "What am I not good at?"
Isn't this also the episode where he literally insults Hannah to her face? Like, why did
Yeah,
you?
I think they should have voted out Hannah. So the before the challenge as well, there's again, I think this is a top tier season because the players are so great, but also I think the editing on this season, with except for the things we've discussed, is really top tier in terms of some of the choices they make. Where we get this fantastic edit where Harry's talking about how he's got these plans and there's no way that a contender went home last night, and then you cut to Andy's face just looking completely confused and baffled by how this has gone so wrong. It's such a good jump cut.
Yep, yep. And Harry's reaction is seeing Sam gone as well. So, which as if you listen to the Harry interview, you'll find out, why. Because they had a really good relationship.
Yeah.
So, all right. So Sarah goes. Sarah tries to get it on Andy because nobody trusts Andy. Is it next episode? Well, it's in this pre-merge, but like at one point, another great David confessional is that like Andy thinks David is his closest ally.
Yes, that. And then also, I also have this note of a David confessional. Andy is like the Steve Bradbury of the Contender tribe.
Yeah, he's just gonna step on a landmine and
Yeah.
He also, this is another example of Andy getting screwed by the edit, where David says Andy has absolutely zero game, and then it cuts to Andy saying 100% true in a different edit. It's like they have Andy answer for his own bad gameplay. It's like, come on.
Yeah, that I agree is definitely not fair. If they make a fool of themselves by themselves, sure, but just don't like push it along.
Yep.
So another huge thing from this episode. This is where we get Harry finding his first individual immunity medal.
Yep, let's talk about that. Yep. This is what Harry described to us on the podcast, where he has the stick and he takes the idol out of the tree. Interesting that they actually had like a ladder behind the bushes for it, which like I find that crazy, but this is also the ladder that Angelina had to climb 100 feet to.
Well, is it that one, or is it the one Tony built in Winners at War?
Oh,
yeah. If it's the one Tony built, I would definitely be like Harry. Let me see use a stick.
I was gonna say this is also my favorite David confessional. One of them is cream always rises to the top.
And he does it as Macho Man too, which is he has like the perfect inflections.
That was interesting. I haven't heard David talk about wrestling. I assume he must at least be a casual fan because he does a Macho Man impression.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was also from the 80s, and David is like older than like others, so I could see him doing that.
He's even old. He's just as old as Kevin.
Oh my God! Don't you shame David like that?
I'm kidding.
My God.
No, I'm gonna get hate mail.
They're both good-looking older gentlemen.
Yes.
If you get hate mail from Kevin, it's fine. It'll take about 2 months to get here through the Postal Service, so it's totally fine.
I was gonna say Kevin's still trying to get through all of Pirate Sarah's hate mail to him. So. All right, so that's through episode 8, big episode, and then we get into episode 9, and this is a non-elimination episode. We talked about it at length with Harry, and this is where Dirty Harry gets revealed at Tribal, and this is where Sean gets kidnapped by the Champions tribe. Let's
before we get to Tribal, because that will be a lot to talk about. Let's just get if there's anything else. My first note is Sean finally opens the fake idol. Like, if somebody handed me an idol, I'm opening that like as soon as I can. I'm not going to wait days.
Yep.
It is also a very good fake idol. It's very believable.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Because like Sean even says like it felt like a real idol, and then when he opened it and realized that it looked different, then he was like, okay, obviously I know this is fake, but
Speaking of idols, I had this at a previous note, but I noticed that the immunity idol looks like a zombie head, and that just like was very weird. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, that reminds me of Panama Exile Island where they had
Yeah.
shrunken heads.
Yeah, okay, that one was cool though.
It was cool, but that was a weird theme for that season.
Yeah. Sorry, go.
If you're going to get Twilight references in, I'm going to get a reference to Lost in. The immunity idol it looks like Claire's squirrel baby that she had.
That's pretty good. And speaking of Lost references, listen to the Dirty Harry podcast because he tells a story about Grayson Waller that made me think of the smoke monster in Lost. So
Yeah, that story was really, really funny. So that is a must listen.
yeah. The only other thing I have on this episode besides immunity and tribal is it's toasty time with the champions and then the family pictures as the plates. I thought that was like a great little like tidbit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, like we talked about with Harry, thank God I mean, it gets blown up anyway, but like thank God like the contenders didn't win, so Harry didn't have to explain why Oscar wasn't on the plate.
Maybe he could have said he's John Cena and you just can't see him. I don't know.
There you go. Yeah, I think it's one of those lucky little coincidences where it probably would have been exposed at that point, but instead we get this fantastic tribal council where it all comes out and Ross just not. I'm guessing Ross just didn't believe him at all in calling him out on it, which is interesting that he picked up on it. And then Abby being completely heartbroken.
Abby's face of just turning, Oscar's fake.
Yeah, and her dejected look is really funny. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm glad Harry also explained on the podcast of like he thought that the person voted out was going to go to the other tribe once they were voted out. Like, totally makes sense because like we've watched, even up to season 4. Like at this point, we know if people are there visiting tribal council that it's someone's not gonna go home. So, totally makes sense. Any other thoughts on this tribal?
Well, I agree with what Harry said. This was bullshit that you're able to steal somebody's best player. And then I just love how as soon as Sean is stolen, Grace is like, all right, if I have to take on the horse, I will.
Yeah, I love that too. But yeah, I do agree. It's definitely BS. Like, of course, they're all gonna take Sean, like, and David and Luke are like forced to just go along with it, even though David obviously doesn't want to take Sean.
Yeah, it felt like production meddling where they were obviously going to pick Sean, and it was production wanting to bring the David and Sean storyline into focus by getting them on the same tribe.
Yeah, I wonder how much, because like I do wonder that as well, specifically with Australian survivors, how much they appear to step in to save people or like make things happen.
Well, I think this twist was always going to be there to steal the best player, but I feel like either Sean gets stolen or probably David gets stolen. So either way, like I could see them being on the same tribe after this.
Right. That's true, but it's like, sometimes it works out for the better in certain seasons, like season 1. Thank God that the twist came along to save Nick.
Yeah.
But like, you're just
and then sometimes it works out bad and Tara is still in the game.
Yeah, sadly.
So we haven't really spoke about the specifics of that tribal where this is where we get Harry throwing Janine under the bus completely and giving her the title of the godmother. The real start of that rivalry. And yeah, just Harry coming out like swinging with everything he has, the stick in the mouth, dirty Harry. There's so much going on in this tribal council. It's fantastic. It's one of my favorite tribal councils, and it's not even a real elimination.
Yeah, and then this is where he gets the nickname Dirty Harry because after the Oscar is revealed to be fake.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the best nicknames aren't given. Sorry, the best nicknames aren't given to yourself. It's like other people give them to you. He like earned that from the other players rather than Coach just calling himself the Dragon Slayer.
It's like when you gave Neo his nickname.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
See, I didn't You
Okay,
okay?
we had one mention. We need to be careful, guys. We can only get one more in before he pops in. So
All right. Episode 10. This is another crazy tribal. But and any this is the Hannah blind side, but anything else before we get to that tribal?
yes, I want to talk about the immunity challenge. I love this one because this is where they have to like hold the rope underwater to hold
yeah.
up the gate, and then Simon just like is like a clutch shot. But I just love it, like the underwater images, especially of Ross, just like at ease, just being underwater because he's a professional surfer and he's
Right.
just like holding that rope with no problems. Like this is a challenge I want to come back or go to America, but I know Jeff won't do it. But
Sadly.
Yeah, my note was Ross is part dolphin.
Yeah, it's sad. Like there's so many challenges in Australian Survivor history that should go over to America but won't. There's some that do because they did the arch puzzle in 46 from Blood versus Water, I think it first appeared in. So
and then they did the Plinko one from, I don't know if that was in Australia, but I know it was in Survivor UK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
And then
it is because it's the isn't this Plinko challenge? This is the one where oh no, I was gonna say the one that Luke loses at the end.
This is like the Australian version of Samotion. Is how I call it, because you have the balls and you just need to keep them.
Oh yeah.
My only other note before the tribal is the champions come in with chewing sticks in honor of Harry.
It's really good.
Yeah,
so
it's really good.
I had a note that this is when Sean is on the same beach as David for the first time, and he completely outplays the Golden God. He really handles it well, where David's kind of probing about the idol to see if he knows if it's a fake, and Sean convinces him that he has no idea, and he's talking about not having to play it, and now he's on the wrong beach, so it's kind of useless. So I think Sean really played that well.
Yep. And David's confessional, isn't it, where he's like, he does the Tony thing of the eyes go bing.
Yeah.
So, yep, this is where we get to tribal, and basically the plan is to throw Hannah under the bus in order for, to make Luke and David comfortable and to get one of them out. And then Luke and David both play their idols. Luke doesn't need to, but I obviously understand why he does. And this is where Hannah goes anyways, because it ends up then switching to a split on Hannah, and Hannah goes. So.
And then Andy revealed the plan to David and Luke, right? So then they knew to play the idols. Okay.
Yep.
But they didn't vote with him.
Right. He voted for Daisy. They tried to vote Sean off, and then that's obviously something got blown up because then they knew that they needed to split on Hannah to save Sean, and Daisy. So
so if Luke and David had voted for Daisy with Andy, it would have been 3-2.
And
Daisy would have went home. But I mean, this is maybe Andy's biggest misplay, where he completely destroys his own tribe, and all for two players who don't really value him that much. So I feel like this was kind of the end of Andy's chances in the game, where he's kind of isolated himself from everybody.
Yeah. It sucks for Andy, but this was definitely where his game is completely gone at this point. So anything to say? I think Hannah only got one or two confessionals herself, so she also didn't get anything in this season.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Wasn't she a cop or something too, or a security officer or something? I don't know.
Sure, I don't know. Maybe she was a theft prevention officer like Garrett from Titan versus Rebels. I don't know. It could be anything.
Oh, geez. Yeah, we'll get to talk about Garrick later. Much later. But anyway, so then episode 11, this is where Harry finds his second idol, and this is the Casey Boot episode. So anything else? And is this
Yeah, this is the reward challenge with the popcorn. So this is a big thing.
that I was wondering?
Especially because Jono tells Dave to go first because Dave has kids.
Yes.
And it's like, so now you know John definitely has not seen Survivor.
Yeah.
Yep. And we have to talk about, David finds the popcorn idol, and you have David burying his face in the popcorn that spills out while his wife and kid are talking on the screen.
It's so funny just watching him completely ignore the message from home and kind of dancing around with his idol and burying his face in the popcorn. And again, just kind of peak David content. He's just so good.
The golden god is back.
Yeah. You also have Sean coming in after him and saying like, "Oh, I guess David was really hungry." When he sees all the popcorn on the floor.
And then when Luke comes in, he's searching through the ice cream as he's watching the video, crying while he's searching for the idol, as he's eating like an ice cream bar. It's just like a perfect image.
Yep. Yep.
We also get David's performance when he comes back with the idol, where he's giving an Oscar-worthy, crying, upset performance.
I'm sorry, as we've already established, Oscar is fake, so that's why I'm here, folks, for those jokes.
Is this
I'm making you cry. It was that funny. Wow. You're welcome.
Wow. Is this
really
this
good.
episode or next episode where Pia and Janine devise throwing the challenge to get Harry out?
That's next one, because this challenge is
Next one.
when oh wait, no, I have it as my nose challenge is thrown, but I thought this. Oh yes, this is the one where the challenge is thrown, and then Ross asked Harry, "Can I have your sock?"
Oh yeah.
So then Harry plays the idol.
Yep, and Casey goes because Casey then also tries to blow it up. And like, we should talk about this as well, because I don't really get why Casey, again, if this cash alliance is a thing, I don't get why she's like turning on Harry like this and really blowing everything up, because she should know she's as much on the chopping block as Harry is.
I think, well, as Harry says in our interview, which you can also check on the Tribe of Nerds feed, he mentions like they all, besides Grayson, they all knew, like all the contenders knew, like they were all vying for one spot. So it's like everybody was throwing everybody else under the bus. So I think I think it's basically what it is.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a classic thing of someone just panicking. I think she wasn't rational, and she wasn't willing to hold her nerve, and she was just trying to do anything she could to ingratiate herself. When the absolute best plan here is they stick together, and Harry they both very strong. They play the idol and hope for the best.
Yeah. I'm sorry. All I heard was somebody panicking. Did you say Neo or Casey? I wasn't sure.
That's three now.
No, two. That's only two.
No,
no
I said it too.
Okay. Well then. Oh God. All right. We have to end this podcast, guys.
We also get Janine on the beach where she says that she thinks it's all just furphy, and she said it 3 or 4 times. And I was like, "What is furphy?" It's not a word I've heard before. And I looked it up.
Did you do research?
It's Australian slang for bullshit, essentially. I was like, that's not something I'd heard.
I'm going to add that to my vernacular with all the other Australian things I've added.
All right, and then episode 12. So this is unfortunately where we say goodbye to Grayson Waller. And this is where but also like they scare Janine and also playing her idol at this next one, right? Or was it this?
Yeah, it was this one where she plays her idol.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Harry also finds another idol this one.
3. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so he gets the idol clue and it's up in the shelter. And you kind of get this sad idol find. It's a complete opposite to the first idol find he has, where they had a real chance to change the game with the first one. With this one, there's not really much. It's essentially a death sentence for Matt, which is a shame.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is.
I really did like Matt in this season too, like just as a character and everything, and his and Harry's relationship. And so I would have liked to see Matt make the merge, but
Mhm.
sadly.
Fun fact: I've talked with Matt/Grayson, and I asked him what made him play Survivor, and it was because the challenge wasn't an Australian thing back then, so he did Survivor, and he was sad that he went here because he knew if he made it to the individual portion, then he could really show what he had in the physical game.
Yeah. I think he could be considered one of the best physical players if he had gotten a chance to show it. So
Mhm.
Yeah, probably the
Uh,
second best challenge performer of the season after Andy.
yeah.
Well, speaking of that, that ties into my next one. This is where Andy tries to throw the challenge,
Yes.
but Beast Baden is like, no.
Challenge
No, but
Baden.
he had to look like he was throwing. He wasn't really throwing. He was doing it to protect David.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is one of the times one of my favorite confessionals also is Andy thinks David is on his side, and then David's like, well, I'm sorry, my guy, but we do not.
Yeah.
Oh,
The one-sided relationship between Andy and David is so much fun to watch. We also get the amazing scene where Harry pretends to cry on the beach and Ross comforts him. And again, it's just Ross being the most lovable guy where he's like, oh, we were just playing. Like, I don't want to upset you.
oh God, this cast is so good.
And then my only other note for this episode is this is the first mention of a Mexican Parma because the reward was a chicken parm instead of Mexican Parma. And John was like, I will tackle you right now for a Mexican Parma. And this is the only time I've ever heard of it. And I've asked every Australian survivor I've talked to what it is and have they had it, and it does not sound good.
No, Palmer's good.
Well, no, Parma's good, but a Mexican Parma, I just had to Google it just to make sure. It is a chicken fillet smothered in Mexican salsa and cheese, which sounds fine, but then is covered in sour cream and guacamole. So I think that's where I draw the line.
I think that sounds pretty good.
Oh, I mean, I just think a normal Parma sounds better. So
Yeah, and this is and speaking on that, I think John spends like an entire night, and they show this of him just fantasizing about Mexican Parma.
And seductively describing it.
oh, John, no.
John.
I think on Matt's exit, I really like after he's voted out that he really goes to bat for Harry and says like the guy's an asset and like just a good friend to the end was Matt to Harry, and he even it's really sweet. He like thanks Harry for everything. Like it's just a really like sweet exit for him.
Yeah. I don't know. I would have loved to see Matt back on another Australian season, but I would assume that.
But by the time he would have been back, he was already in WWE, and he can't take off 2 months. Like because he told me he would love to do the challenge, but he can't take off 3 months. So
Yeah,
I think he might be busy.
Just a little
unfortunately.
bit. Just being in the ring with John Cena, The Rock, just icons.
At least, Matt can be remembered as like a great one-time Survivor character.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, episode 13. This is where the faulty challenge design, and we unfortunately lose Ross to a medevac because he falls after the rope breaks, and just like
one of the worst injuries.
Yeah,
like, just seeing his ankle or his shin, whatever it was, just hit that wood. It's like,
yeah. It's I just feel so bad because again, we also think about like I think Ross was in like a good position to go very, very deep into the game. Everybody loved him. He wasn't out in front like a lot of the other players were at this point. And so I really think we probably would have seen him in like the last few episodes, probably.
I feel like Ross's play style, he looks like someone who everyone feels they could work with. Like he's not really closed off to anything. So yeah, I feel like people would always keep him around because they feel like he's someone they could pull in potentially.
Yeah,
So I think he does really well if he makes it to the merge.
Yeah, and then if he doesn't vote with somebody like they could write it off as, oh, he's just Ross, like that type of thing. He gives off those vibes.
yeah. Anything else with episode 13 besides Ross's?
Well, I mean, the fact that they continued the challenge after he got hurt, I mean, that's a little bit like, come on, man.
There's challenges they've stopped for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So this is the culmination also of in the previous episode where Ross asks Harry for his socks. You can see during this challenge that he has Harry's socks on. Harry did give him the socks, and when he comes in on his crutches, one of the socks is gone. So it's been like one sock is lost, but he's still got one of Harry's socks on.
It's so funny.
And I do like how they brought in the other tribe to say goodbye to Ross too. Like he was that lovable.
Yeah, for sure. And like again, I think another reason why Ross was like, because like he was getting along so well with Luke, like that relationship was fun because they just seemed like they have similar personalities.
They were like naughty kids.
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect description.
Yeah. This is also where we get the Janine Harry kind of ceasefire where Harry. I really like how Harry plays this way. He's relied on idols to this point, and he runs off into the jungle to look for one, and everyone runs after him. And then he doubles back to the beach to have a conversation with the godmother, and it's him kind of saying, "I can't rely on idols for the next 12 tribal councils. I need to have something else here," and forming a relationship with Janine that would become very important for Harry come merge. And it seems like that relationship was legit, and Simon would have been the vote had they gone to that tribal council. So Harry, Janine, and Pia becoming a bit of an unexpected threat. I was going to say threesome. That's probably not the right way to call it, but trio.
Going off what you said, that reminded me of one more thing about Ross, is where like Harry's like, "Hey Ross, you ready?" And then Harry starts running, and then Ross just follows him. Like I love how he's just like, "All right, I know you're gonna follow me. Are you ready?"
It's so good. Yeah, I really like that Harry and Janine can like put differences aside and work together at this point too. So makes it more interesting as we move forward. All right.
One final thing before we say goodbye to Ross forever. It's a little moment from a previous episode, but just sums up why I love Ross. Janine's just looking at the fish in the water and saying, "Oh, look at all these fish," and Ross just grabs a rock and smashes it into the water. And it's just it's so funny. He just completely disrupts them, and Janine's kind of stood there like, okay.
Yep. All right, well, goodbye, Ross. And now we merge with the final 12, and episode 14 is all about the downfall of Andy. So
aptly named Sacrifice Tribe.
Yeah.
Yes, the Solibula tribe that is actually meaning sacrifice, but he claims it's, bringing them together, or to bring a tribe together, or whatever he says it means.
And then I do like how David was like, "Who comes to this game and already has a merge name ready?"
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to name a merge tribe, but
but just
it makes me wonder. I wonder if he had a merge tribe ready for Blood versus Water.
Oh God.
It reminds me of the fact, like some of the people that have named merge tribes. I mean, Eric Reichenbach in Micronesia, and then Malcolm in Karamoan named his mom's name backwards.
Yeah,
and then also Boston Rob named after one of Amber's stuffed animals. So
yes, yep. So just some fun trivia there. We could probably name a few other ones, but
I mean, we have the most famous merge tribe name ever in Worlds Apart, America.
Oh yeah, Mike Holloway. Yep.
And we missed out on potentially the greatest tribe name of all time when they didn't let King George call it Queen Elizabeth.
Oh my God.
So now it will be King Charles, right? If they do it now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. All right.
Yeah.
I mean,
speaking of good things, the only other notes I have on this is the reward challenge where they get tempted by food, and then Daisy gets the crates that will give you all the items you need to succeed in this game.
Yep, the tools that she does not use to succeed and instead uses to fail horribly. I just want to say with Daisy, because we haven't talked about her at all, really. I just feel like Daisy, I just don't think she's a good player. I think like she's a decent character, of course, but I think she visibly makes so many mistakes in this season, and I feel like she could have been making way more smarter decisions, and she just doesn't. So,
as Lockie says in All Stars, she's a bogan. So that's my review.
Yeah, I do like Daisy, but she does
Yeah.
make a ton of mistakes, and like she has a real chance to completely change the game on two separate occasions, and doesn't pull it off. So yeah, she's not the best player, but I do really like her.
yeah, I'm sure she's a fun person. Isn't there also the scene she gets to sit in a bucket at one point?
Yeah, because she gets the bath. Yeah, because she got everything from the challenge.
Yep, because sitting in a bucket is totally a really good bath.
Oh, guys, yeah. Then my only other note for this tribal episode before tribal is Janine gave herself the nickname the Perfume Scorpion, which I forgot about until rewatching it. It's like that's a bold choice for a nickname.
I have the same note, and it's so funny because it's Janine desperately trying to not have the godmother thing stick.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm the godmother. I'm the Perfume Scorpion. And it's like, no, that's not going to stick, Janine. You're the godmother.
Yeah.
Of course, Andy gets voted out, and of course we get the iconic line of him blowing up David on the way. And
not
pulling
even
off
really knowing.
pulling off one of his best moves of the game by accident.
Yeah, because obviously he actually didn't know David had an idol, but it's just funny because David's face after it is just very angry.
Yeah. So in Andy's jury villa, oh no, he's not on jury villa. So when
did Andy make jury?
Yeah, I was like, I sent you the videos. I was like, I didn't see that one.
I must have seen something. Oh, maybe it was in his like post vote off thing. But I heard him say that he doesn't actually think that David has an idol.
That was his exit interview.
That was his exit thing. So I have a question for you guys. So Andy started the season by saying, I'm going to play the most strategic game this franchise has ever seen. So now that he's been voted off, is that true? On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you give him? I would go like a 4.
I would say a 3.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean he just didn't. There's no defending that.
Yeah.
But I do think he was a fun player to watch in the season, and he did bring a lot to the cast. And I'm sure if he gets a chance to play a second time, he'll do a lot better.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely sure. Yeah.
Oh,
definitely not first move.
No, I mean,
seeing if he turns up.
Yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, I will say Andy did deserve to come back from the cast.
Yes.
Like, is a memorable character. He was a great part of this cast. It's just like, again, he's a sloppy player. So all right.
One final thing on Andy. Baden and Harry, when they write down Andy's name, they do the backwards N like Toy Story.
For Toy Story, yeah.
That's
really,
so
really good.
Yeah, so Andy's unanimously voted out. And so we get to now the jury phase, the final 11. Oh, and Sean had won the first individual immunity, forgot to mention that.
And speaking of Andy being voted out unanimously at the merge, Andy, I know how you feel, man. I just want to say that right now. I know what it feels like to be the merge boot and get unanimously voted out. So
even when people should actually be voting to keep you.
Yes. I know, Andy. Now, you know what? Looking back on it, Michael, I'm on your side now. Andy, he's a pretty great guy.
All right, so now we get to episode 15, and this is the Sean Boot episode, and the one that we talked about with Harry with the bonfires. And the last gasp challenge of David and Sean having the showdown and David pulling it out. So, any other thoughts?
Before we get to that, let me just say that Abby gets the car curse during this episode. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the car curse people from Australian Survivor, Abby, Simon, me, and Mark from Titans versus Rebels, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that Australia does bring the car curse back from the
no. Also, Danny from Brains versus Brawn.
Oh, yeah, Dan.
She got it too, because I was like, I knew there was somebody before Simon.
Yeah. So
I love in this challenge. It's a challenge that's really difficult physically, and it's for the prize of a car. And you have Janine, who is a multimillionaire, standing on this painful torture rack for over an hour when she don't need a car. And I just love Janine so much because she puts herself through this just for the love of the game, and I just think she's fantastic.
I didn't even think, but I wonder if it's different in like Australia, like winning a car on a game show, because in the US those taxes would fucking kill you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm just saying, because I had a friend who was on The Price is Right, and he won 2 motorcycles, and the taxes were like almost half the price of the actual like cycles. It's like, why? It's like, why do we do this, America?
Really?
Yeah.
same.
Yeah, all prizes in the UK is tax free.
Oh, just like Canada, maybe, and Australia, maybe. So I guess the monarchy,
I think so.
I guess the monarchy may be onto something.
See?
And is this the reward where it's Abby, John, and David at the waterfall?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then David's trying to talk strategy, and John's just eating food, and Abby's like, I don't really care.
Classic John.
Yeah.
It feels so much like David just interrupting a date night. Like Abby and John are just getting to know each other and having conversations about like home, and then you've got David just relentlessly talking about the game.
Yeah, it's like if David was on Survivor, but the other two were on the Bachelorette. Like that's that's how it feels.
Yep. All right, and so then the last gasp challenge, which again another classic challenge and probably one of the best showdowns we ever had in that challenge with David and Sean. And so David pulls it out, and so we get to the bonfires because the challenge goes super late. And it was fun hearing Harry get to talk about like what went into that, and like it's just a fascinating thing that they put in here, and we're gonna get it again in All Stars as well. At the final 11 also. But
I just wanted to mention that, so we didn't mention this to Harry, but I mentioned it to you guys. This is what it feels like a Survivor mini is, where you just have to like go to like different breakout rooms and try to figure out what's going on while everybody else is like there.
Yep. It's definitely like that, and it's a wild thing to experience and even to watch as a mod. And I don't think that if you haven't been through this type of experience, like I suggest honestly experiencing it at least once, because it's fun, it's fascinating.
It's certainly something. I really rate Sean as a player. I think he's really good, and we'll obviously see him again in a few weeks. And I really liked that he went down swinging here at this final tribal for him, and he had a really good plan, and he's talking a lot of sense. And like Luke has the best story, and you can't get David to break that duo up and get Luke out. I think it was the perfect pitch for him, and it very nearly works. And unfortunately, Janine is just an absolutely world-class player, and she shuts it down with an amazing tribal speech. So it was just kind of Sean being a really good player, but just being slightly outclassed by Janine.
Yes, I really do like Sean as well. I'm so happy he finally came back in Heroes versus Villains, because he absolutely deserved to. And I think we need to give Sean credit for like eventually being able to smoke out like David, and like there are players I think who would fall for that and just be completely oblivious to it, honestly, and Sean was not that. So very, very glad Sean is a Survivor player that we can talk about.
One more
I think
thing,
it's
quick. Oh,
sorry, go on.
No, because mine's going to wrap up this episode.
Okay. And I think like in terms of the athlete archetype player, like he's very different from your survivor athlete. Like he is very switched on about like game dynamics, and yeah, he's a much more strategic player than I think people realize. He's kind of got it all when it comes to that. He's very good socially. He's obviously a physical player, and then yeah, strategically he's got good reads. I think he's a really solid player.
Absolutely.
Definitely agree. Plus, he also has a supermodel wife. So my note to wrap up this episode was going back to the fire barrels and like how it is a mini.
Yeah.
And to anybody listening, if you want to play a mini against survivors, I suggest applying to Survivor Vanquish Fans versus Favorites 5, which happens in August. And I know for a fact at least one Survivor member from Titans versus Rebels will be on there. So just saying, join the Facebook group.
I'm pretty sure I know who you're referencing. We won't spoil it.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling, but I don't know.
I was just going to reference what Michael said real quick, where David's confessional of his missus is okay too, I suppose. All right. So let's get to episode 16, the downfall of the Golden God, and for the only time in Survivor history that he is voted out, and in spectacular fashion. This is probably one of the best episodes in Survivor history. I would put it up there, just because of how crazy it is. And Luke wins his first immunity this season in this episode, to start that off. Anything else before we get to the tribal for this episode?
I think I really like
tribal.
Oh, okay. I really like how Pia placates David. My note is Pia pretends she likes David.
Yeah.
So you have her like putting on her acting and really making David feel comfortable throughout the day at the beach. So yeah, that was kind of Pia getting, I don't know, the first little shine of what we would come to see from her in the post-merge.
Yeah.
And speaking of making David feel comfortable, my note was that Harry talks about him and Daisy going home, so then David doesn't feel like he has to play the idol.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, we didn't touch on that with Harry of like what part he played in David going home, just because we had to cut that for time. But yeah, no, it's totally, I think Harry definitely had a part to play, and like it's obviously, David's gunning for him as well at this vote. So anything else before we hit the tribal council?
I think this it sums up all the great players that you've got, and everyone's got very distinct playing styles and personalities, where you have this amazing kind of montage of them bringing the people in that they need to take out David. It's like there's one person I can think of, we need Dirty Harry, and you have this like montage of them getting Harry and then going through the list of who they need to get to pull in to take out David. It's just a really cool montage. And completely unrelated, the other note that I have is from the challenge, where we get JLP saying Baden is the first one to find his balls.
We need to keep a track of all the innuendos.
Oh God, no, that's just too many. If there's ever a ball challenge, it's just like that tally like just goes up.
Yeah.
And God help you if coconuts are involved.
Yep. Yeah, we will get to that next week. All right. I mean, yeah, no, this David blindside, getting into it. It's just so good. Like, David doesn't play his idol, and of course you get stuff like, Daisy is really happy, which is going to set up next season. And then Luke leaning over and like, do you have is the idol in your pocket? And David's like, yeah. And just like, when they know that it's going to be David at that point. So
yeah, this was a question I want to ask Luke or David if I ever talk to them, because I wonder if Luke asked that so David could hand it to him, because as we see later in Brains versus Brawn, when somebody gets voted out, they're able to hand something to them after the votes are already read. So I wonder if Luke was like trying to get that idol.
he could.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if like what the rules were with that, if they changed or if they've always been the same. Because considering how much David was kind of backing Luke, and you could see every tribal council where Luke comes in with immunity, he's clearly desperately rooting for Luke to win. I'm sure if he could have given his idol, he surely would have. So I don't know if maybe in that
or
moment where
maybe
he's
he
getting
just didn't
blindsided, he
think.
doesn't think.
Maybe
Yeah,
he just didn't think of it because he's just like, oh shit, I'm getting voted out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah, this is really good. And I mean, we'll talk about that in Brains versus Brawn in a couple weeks, but like I don't like the idea that you can hand people idols after you've been voted out. But
Well, luckily after Brains versus Bronze, Australia did change the rules, so
yes, that is true.
so that's good. My other note about this tribal is, does David have the best like voting out look ever? Like his whole like wardrobe.
Yeah,
Is this one? Is this one the best?
This has to be. This is a really good look. And I mean, I think the whole episode also, you have everybody talking about David going around shirtless as well the entire time.
yeah. The sarong, or is it a so wrong?
Yeah, I know. I really do like this look as well. It's I think in his final words also, he's like, I got voted out wearing this.
Yeah, looking like this. Yeah. And then my only other note is from his jury villa. It's a joke that has made me laugh every time I think about it. It's like he just has like he's doing a spa, and then he sees Sean just like running laps, and then he's like, oh, that's why they call him the horse. But I still think it's because Ross saw him naked, and I just laugh every single time.
Yeah,
I mean,
I really like that this tribal council is obviously an amazing one in and of itself, but it's also the precursor to what would become David's winning game. He used this blindside really as his main story focus coming into the next season with his theme of revenge. So yeah, it's an amazing thing across 2 seasons.
Yeah, I will definitely talk about this arc for David obviously next week, but yeah, it's a really fun first half of David Gannat as a Survivor character.
And then, as I told you guys before, when they started filming All Stars, the last episode all the players saw was Sean getting voted out. So they didn't even see this episode, which is just amazing that David is able to like still win. So
yeah, totally. I mean, we're gonna gush about David's game next week.
Are we? Are we? No.
I mean,
I'm a big Moana fan. I'm just saying.
Oh boy.
And what if I just take a whole left turn?
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the season itself, but I'm not gonna fault that to David, but we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah.
All right. So episode 17, then this is where Daisy completely finishes destroying her game and completely misplays her idol. And this is where, as we talked with Harry about it, this is where the iconic move of voting the third person in a trio out instead of one of the 2 easy targets. We first really got this in Fiji with Edgardo, and so it's fun to see it be used since then. Sadly, we lose John from this, and as we've talked about, John is a really fun Survivor character as well.
But when you watch that jury villa, you'll see that he finally got that at Mexican Parma.
Good.
Speaking of Daisy finding the idol, I just love this whole moment of Luke catches her, and she's like, "Oh, I'm just searching for an idol." It's like, "Are you sure you don't have one in your hand right now?"
Yeah, caught red-handed.
I just can't believe that she actually just held it in her hand at that point.
To be fair, I don't know what.
Sorry. And speaking of Luke, this episode opens with Operation Nighttime Rice, which I just loved. Of Luke, Harry, and just Baden just like going off making their own rice, almost like a certain player in Survivor South Africa. So.
Oh, good. I can't wait to talk about that person at some point in our podcasts.
Sorry, go on, Jake.
I was just going to ask anything else you want to talk about with this.
So this is just more of a chance for me to gush about Harry because I just love Harry's kind of willingness to risk things for the sake of the greater picture. It's like he calls out that he thinks John's going to be the vote, and it was very nearly going to be Harry, but he's trying to get Daisy to not play the idol for him, but to play it for John, and it's very risky. But I think in Harry's mind, it's better, even if he gets voted out at this point in merge or later in merge, it's still not winning. So you're better off taking those swings while you can.
Right.
So trying to get Daisy to play the idol for John, which would have changed the game. It was just a good read on Harry's part and just kind of, shows his gutsiness when it comes to the game.
Yep, totally. Anything else to say on John's boot here?
Not about John, but I do have this note for this episode where Janine says, "I do breed well," which I was just like, "Wow, Janine, okay, perfume scorpion."
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about this string of episodes. I feel like we could probably group them together just based.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the next three are basically just like almost like the same thing.
Yeah, so Daisy goes to exile, Simon goes to exile. Simon wins the iconic challenge of using the prawns to put the little spindle things on
Yeah.
and then Simon gets voted right back out after digging for an idol nonstop. So that's basically
which you can find out why in the podcast with
Yes.
Harry. Speaking of Harry, he has my favorite line during the XL Beach Challenge, where he says, "Daisy, if you beat him, you're back in." It's like, yeah, no shit.
Yeah. No, I love what Harry told us about why Simon was digging nonstop. That's probably another one of my favorite moments of the podcast. So definitely go listen.
And then quickly, I'll just go through all of my notes really quickly because they're basically the same. Episode 18, it has one of my favorite challenges where there's two people on the pegs and you have to remove the pegs.
Oh, yes.
I know this is an Australian staple and they used it in the UK. I don't think we've seen it anywhere else, but this is a challenge I love, especially when there's two people to do it. And then my other note is in episode 19, Pia wins immunity after Luke and Simon throw the challenge. And then I learned during research of why that happened because Luke promised Simon if Simon goes first, he will not vote for Simon. And then Luke lied. So,
of course.
Yeah. So before we say goodbye to Daisy, she does do something that I really, really love about. I think it's one of the best little moments of her game, where she sows seeds of doubt with Luke that Pia told her about that she was planning on flipping.
yes.
So that completely shifts the trust that Luke has in Janine and Pia, which becomes a big point of, the flip that happens. And then when Luke's talking to Harry about this on the beach, you can see Harry processing what's happened here and confirming that Pia did in fact say that and jumping on that lie. So yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. So that's it for Daisy, and I'm assuming we don't have anything for Simon Black.
I'm just going to read this for my episode 20 notes. There's only three. Simon wins exile. Simon digs a huge hole. Simon goes home. Those are my notes. That is what episode 20 was.
Yeah, well, we'll talk. I'll probably say more about Simon when we get to like our least favorite players. So.
You mean NPC Simon? Yes.
Yes.
It is okay. Okay.
Yep. All right. Episode 21. This is where Harry becomes the god killer and takes Janine out. And as he said in podcast, very necessary move. And so, I mean, Janine, a great character. This is a pretty, for the most part, solid final six, I would say.
Yeah. Because I would say everybody would have a shot to win out of these final six, depending on the combination of foods, except for maybe Baden.
I don't think Baden could have won.
Yeah, I think Baden was on the bottom, but everybody else, they all had a shot.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And speaking of shots, I'll just say this is the episode where the challenge is that fun target challenge where you have to throw like a bag to hit a target to slowly move like a block of wood through, and then do a puzzle, and then Luke wins. He's my boy, man. Man, Luke and Grayson, fucking love him.
Yeah, Luke being a challenge beast is so much fun where he's like winning all these challenges. And I mean, I don't remember if he won. He didn't really win that many in season 2 from my memory. So
No,
I don't think he had it. Did he have any
I don't
season
think he
2?
won any.
no,
No.
because season 2 Lockie was cleaning up a lot of the challenges. So um but yeah, no, it's really fun watching him be a challenge beast this season. Sadly, we'll get to his unfortunate loss in a couple episodes here, but
And Baden makes a really odd decision where he tells Abby that they were planning on flipping on Luke when they'd made that final four. So I don't know why he did that, and it kind of puts Harry and Baden back down in that position they'd been in for so long after finally getting some allies.
yeah, interesting decisions by Baden.
And then too, I just did some quick research while you guys were talking. Luke did not win any immunities in season 2. He did win one reward. That was it.
Okay. That was it the champagne reward where they took Henry out
with the spa alliance. Yeah, I think that's because all it says is the mime scene reward. Maybe that was probably the charades one. Maybe I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it's the one where they take Henry out in season 2. But all right. So yeah, Janine goes. Any final thoughts on Janine? I mean, she was a great player. She was a fun character. Again, I feel like she's another great one-time player because obviously with her business, she's not going to play.
Yeah, I wish she would come back, but with her business, there's really no reason. Basically, like, I'm not saying this is the same caliber of player, but Kitty from the most recent season, she came out for the adventure. Like, once you do it and you're that rich, you don't really need to come back.
Right.
Yeah, Janine's one of my favorite players of all time. I think she's so fantastic. Her social ability, the way she really was in control of the game for a really long time, but it never seemed to come back to haunt her. She was just very good at managing people, which makes sense.
Right.
And yeah, she's just amazing. We talked about it in a chat where it's possibly the greatest celebrity player of all time.
Yeah.
Like, she really doesn't have a flaw in her game. She's just really, really good at Survivor.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. I mean, she's definitely in contention for the best celebrity to play the game.
The only thing I would say is bad about her game is giving herself nicknames. The Perfume Scorpion, may you rest in peace.
All right. Well, now we get another crazy blindside. This is the Abby blindside. This is the tribal council where Luke ends up finding the safety without power that he ends up forcing Baden to leave tribal council, and him and Pia blindside Abby in a 2-to-1 vote, which is pretty crazy. This is a crazy one. So any other thoughts on this episode?
First one is a question for you guys. How do you guys feel about safety without power this late in the game? Like finding it this late, and then I feel like that's just like a little bit too much. Like I think I think it should like expire at like 6.
Yeah,
like five is just too much power.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take the side of Kristen for Vanquish and say, like, I agree with the fact that Kristen, she doesn't like that aisles and advantages can go to like final 5. She thinks they should end at 6 because you shouldn't be able to use them to get yourself from 5 all the way to the final 4. Like it shouldn't. So I'm gonna agree with Kristen on this one, and like, you know, Luke shouldn't have been able to do that this late into the game. It
was still fun though. It was still fun.
It was still fun, but like,
it
definitely should have expired by 6, and like that would have forced maybe a couple other moves to be made in some of the more boring votes.
Yeah, I think it's such an overpowered thing to have at 5, where Luke essentially completely checkmates everyone at the tribal council. Obviously, you've only got 5 players left. One of them's going to have individual immunity. You're sending another player back to camp. So I do really like how Luke played it, though, because the obvious way to play it is to send Pia back to camp and he has immunity, and just have Harry, Baden, and Abby fight it out for who's going to go. But he really targets it and uses it in a way to force someone out of the game. So I did like that, but yeah, it's very overpowered.
Yep.
My other notes for this episode are, this is the block stacking challenge, which I would fucking hate if I'm ever on Survivor, because, going slowly by the rope, checking those blocks. And then Luke has a favorite quote of mine: "I'm going to blindside the jury. I might even blindside myself." And then I love when Luke is talking to Abby during Tribal, and then Pia just leans over to Harry. "I think you're awesome."
Yes, yeah, that was a good line. I loved that too. So yeah, any final thoughts on Abby? I mean, again, she wore a heart on her sleeve. I appreciate her being this like really strong, athletic female player, and like, I don't know that we get too many players like her, honestly, in US Survivor at this point. So she was again, another person worthy to be an all-stars. This is a conversation we'll definitely have next week with who is worthy to come back.
Yeah, I'll just say this is probably, she played the best version of her game in this season. Like, I don't see her ever going farther than this.
Like, I think there is an outcome where Abby could have won this season for sure. And I think she's a very likable player, and she's pretty solid in all aspects. I like Abby a lot. My final note on this episode is that when JLP asks if anyone has a hidden immunity idol, everyone turns and looks at Harry, and he like pretends he has one, and he's like, I'm just messing.
Speaking of that, when Luke gets up and goes to Abby to talk, JLP just like looks off to the left, like wait, guys, is he allowed to do that? like JLP had some good facial reactions during this battle.
Yep. Do love JLP's reactions. All right. Well, episode 23, it is time for one of the saddest episodes in Survivor history, and that is Luke Toki, his swan song in Survivor. This is where he loses the Samotion Plinko, whatever, the Samotion type challenge, and gets voted out, and we know that it's coming, but like he still tries to get Pia to force fire making, and she doesn't do it and votes him out. So
yeah, and then Baden refuses to talk with Luke. It's like, come on, man, poor jury management there.
Yeah, I as someone who thinks there is such thing as both bitter juries and jury management, this was absolutely poor jury management for sure.
Yeah.
I think like Harry also doesn't talk to Luke, but I think from what I've seen, Harry told Luke about like, look, you're the biggest threat to win this. I'm coming for you, and like, may the best man win, essentially. So I think, the way Harry deals with it over Baden, I think it will be more respected by Luke as a player. And I mean, Luke was just the obvious vote here, and I know it's really sad, but as someone who was rooting for Harry very much so, Harry winning that immunity was I was celebrating, even though I knew it meant it was the end of Luke.
Yeah, I love that Harry was still able to win this. I like both. I would have preferred one of them to win this season. Nothing against Pia, but I would have loved a Luke or a Harry win here. And I thought, okay, if Harry wins this, then it's gonna be Harry who wins, since it's not Luke. But
yeah, and then when I watched the season, I didn't know who won or who got voted out. But when Luke like loses that ball, like he does that like desperate grab to get it, it like broke my heart. Michael will get this reference. It's like when Shawn Michaels was in the Royal Rumble, he was trying to face the Undertaker, and then he's just like reaching for the rope as he falls back. Yeah, it's just like it just like breaks your heart. It's like, oh man.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it sucks. And like, even when Luke does get voted out, his reaction is just, it's sad. So
yeah.
at this point, and like obviously, Luke was either going to come back for this season or All Stars, and like they used him for this season, and it obviously worked. So like, I'm very glad Luke was here.
I think he had a way better shot here than he would
Yes.
have in All Stars.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because he would be the Rob C of All Stars. Like he's not the winner, but like you want him out like quick.
Yeah,
And he also
absolutely.
kind of gets a lot of the focus of the season by being the only returnee. So I think it was a really good showcase for Luke and a fantastic game. And if we did a Mount Rushmore of Survivor Australia, like Luke is on there.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah, we can do that after we review them all, but I just have all four in my head. They all, I mean, George is already there. So I mean, there's two spots. So there's 2 spots there. So then we have to fight over the next 2.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there will be a case made for Harry possibly, but I mean, we'll
figure out. We'll wait till the end.
Yeah. But now we get to the final 3, and we talked about this with Harry and his feelings on what happened here. And I know that he said him voting out Luke was just him wanting to back himself going into this final challenge, which I totally see. Like, I think it makes sense. He probably could have kept Luke here, but again, it's risky to do so as well. So totally get why he didn't try to go with Luke here. And so, this final challenge is another really good one. And just like I would argue it's probably one of the more brutal challenges in us Survivor history.
Yes.
So, and the fact they are up till like what Harry said 2 a.m. or at least he got voted out at 2 a.m. is like insane.
Because they didn't think that they would make it that long, and then like my note for this immunity challenge is I used to hate it on US Survivor when the family would come out for like a reward, but I love it in Australian Survivor when the family comes out for the final immunity, because it's just like your family's watching you, because they see, if they win, then they're in the finals. Like, oh god damn it, it just makes my heart like cry.
Yep, definitely the best thing. Another one of the best things Australian Survivor does is the family coming out, for that last challenge. And final tribal, of course. But all right, so Baden wins this, which I don't think anybody figured Baden would win this last challenge.
I don't know, man. Beast Baden. I have him in my Beast Baden.
So yes, and then of course, unfortunately, we lose Harry here, and like again, my words, I have so many words for like how grateful I am that we got to talk to him today, and like he really is one of the best to never win, because this season he really brought his all and like it in his entire game, and just like I have so much appreciation for him, even more now because of talking to him and hearing everything out. So
like, and he was in a really bad spot for a large portion of this game, and kind of in terms of pure survival, like he overcame the most odds of anyone in the season, and to come all the way to final 3, I don't think anyone would have predicted when they saw the dire situation he was in at Tribe Swap. Harry, my all-time favorite player, and this was the toughest episode of Survivor for me to watch, where it's like the person you're rooting for goes. I feel like this, like Jonathan Penner, there's a few episodes where like you're really rooting for that person to get to the end, and when they don't make it, it's like, oh man, I just really wanted that person to get to the end, and it's heartbreaking.
Malcolm,
but
And then my thoughts on Dirty Harry. I agree with everything you said. When I posted about like we are doing the interview with him, somebody from Australia gave me like the best summation of Dirty Harry. He is smart, strategic, but he still knows it is a show, so he goes out to have fun. And I think that like encompasses Dirty Harry perfectly.
Yep, absolutely. I would love to see him back a third time. I guess we didn't ask him that either. I mean, if he never comes back, I love the legacy that we have gotten from him, and obviously we'll talk more about him in All Stars next week, which we didn't have time to ask about, and I'm glad that we didn't, because this should be about champions versus contenders.
Yeah.
So
Because that's just like his, that's just his like perfect season. I mean, it's apex. I
yes,
guess is the way to say it. Yeah.
right. So I mean, but I'm excited we'll get to talk about him a little more at least next week. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
But
really
we
love
still.
this.
Sorry, go.
I really love this tribal council as well. Like Harry and Pia, who have been like two brilliant players throughout the season, going head to head to kind of, it's almost like a preview of what their final tribal would have been, like where they're going at each other and trying to convince Baden to take them to the end. It's just a really fun back and forth between them.
yeah, yeah, it is really good. So all right, so Baden votes Harry out, and it is a Baden and Pia final two, which both could have been first boot from their tribe.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
really interesting. So we go to final tribal, and it really seems like Pia brings the fire, and Baden does not as much.
Yeah. My note is Pia murdered Baden.
Yes.
That's my note for.
I have the exact same note.
It's like man, she just fucking killed him.
Unanimous vote.
Yeah. And speaking of that, the unanimous vote, this is the first Australian winner to get that. And then it happens 3 in the next 5 seasons, which may be like a flaw in Australian Survivor is because the last 3 winners were all unanimous. So
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. We'll talk about them then too. But yeah, I mean, for me, with Pia as a winner, like I think she did really well. I mean, she ingratiated herself so much after the early going on the Champions Tribe to where at that point she wasn't really a target ever again, until like this end game. And so she deserves so much credit for that. Um, as a winner though, it's just like again, when you have people that you would just prefer as the winners, it's just like harder for me to like say I'm so glad Pia won.
yeah.
But I do think she's still a good player. I know she's never gonna play again either. So like she's famous, and so I get it.
Yeah, I'm fine with the winner. I still would have preferred Luke or Dirty Harry. Like if Baden had won, then I would have had problems. But
Yeah,
that's just me.
I think Pia is a really, really good player, and I do think she's a great winner. It's just in a season where you have other players that you would have preferred to see get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of winner, I think Pia played a great game, and it was a really interesting final tribal council because I think Pia and Baden played very similar games in terms of that slightly under the radar. But the difference is that Pia played that game from a majority and Baden played that game from a minority. So none of Baden's moves actually worked. Whereas with Pia, her moves worked. So she had more to talk about. So it's like Baden was saying, I did this stuff, but it didn't work. He didn't get the numbers to do it. Whereas they did play quite similar, but Pia actually had stuff she could say, this is what I did throughout this game, and succeeded at.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. And as Janine has been calling her this entire season, she is the smiling assassin. And we will get that name for another winner.
Later. Yeah, which I was like during Titan versus Rebel, I was like, come on, somebody come up with something better. We already have this one.
Well, I mean, I would say the Arabian Prince is better at least. So, but yeah, so there we go. That is through the entire season. So let's get to our superlatives, and then we will get to our ranking of the season. So favorite player, I feel like this may be skewed after the podcast, but I was gonna say between Harry, David, and Luke, but I'm gonna go with Dirty Harry.
I know where Michael's going, so I'll be the difference and go Luke just because he could, because this wasn't brought up in the podcast, but Michael said it in the chat, so I wanted to give him credit. He said he is the male version of Shawnee, and I agree 100% that Luke is amazing. So
yes, totally. He is one of the best social games in Survivor history as well. So
Michael? Who are you picking? Just so we
so
have it.
this has all been a lie. I don't even like Harry. I just used him to
that
get.
would have been amazing if you if you pulled an Oscar and just were like lying the entire time.
Yeah, Harry
Andy,
sucks.
no wonder you were defending Andy and Steven so hard.
Yeah, no, yeah, Harry is my all-time favorite player. I just think he's fantastic to watch, and just his story throughout this season is so good. And he is that kind of lovable underdog, and kind of starts off slightly villainous, but you just can't help but root for him. Yeah, I love watching Harry play, and it was a pleasure to get to talk to him. So yeah, Harry's my favorite player.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Least favorite player. I think we know this one. I'm going with Simon Black, NPC Simon, because he was just a dud.
Michael, you go first because that may
Ooh.
skew my answer.
Do you have one?
No, I don't. But so that's why I was like,
I'm trying to think. I was going to say you go first. It's tricky because yeah, I don't think Simon Black was particularly great. But I think mine would probably have to be someone in the pre-merge, like maybe like a Steve Bradbury, because I think
what I was gonna say. Okay.
Yeah, I think Steve came in with like this one idea that he was going to do, and it was just a colossal failure, and he just didn't manage his relationships. And jumping way back, there's that amazing confessional where David's talking about Steve and saying like, really, Steve, the social game is an important part of Survivor. Who knew? So yeah, I think he fundamentally failed at a very important part of the game.
I was going to say Steven until you did that, but I just want to be different. So I will say Andy just because his game was super messy. I know you're going to disagree, but just because it was a messy game, and then just so I can say one more time, David's quote of Andy is the Stephen Bradbury of the Contenders tribe. So, and you cannot be wrong about the Golden God. So you cannot argue with the Golden God. So
also to say we are not friends with Andy, even though he thinks we are. I'm sorry, my guy, but we are not.
Yeah. It's just he's a super nice guy. I assume, but it's just like I just didn't like him on the show because they made him to be too much of a joke, and that just skewed me. So
right. All right, and then the best move of the season. I mean, Harry's tribals are fantastic. I'm gonna have to go with the David blindside though. I think it's really what like Pia's move in the entire game is blindsiding David and her role in that, as much as Harry also had a role in that. But yeah, I because it sealed the winner, it as the winner's move for me. I'll say David.
okay. And you said it was best, not favorite, right?
I would say best, unless you guys want to say favorite, but
okay. Well, can we say favorite or is it just best?
You know,
if it's best, it's gonna be different.
Okay, you guys can go favorite. I think that makes
okay. David with the idol switch with Sean, like that it's just it caused so much chaos. And it was just like it's like holy shit, I've never seen that happen where you have to trade idols across tribal lines, and then he did it with a fake one. That's the best part.
It was crazy.
Yeah. I think in terms of best moves, it's definitely the David blindside. Because as much as I love Harry's swap period in the game, the moves don't actually come off. But they're very entertaining. So like, yeah, my favorite one would be Dirty Harry coming to play at that fake tribal council where he in front of every single member of the cast blows up everyone's game and just comes out to play as this kind of crazy Machiavellian villain. So that would be my favorite, but I do think the best move is the David blindside.
And then since I never said best, just to be different, Michael sold me on this during this podcast. I will say Luke sending Baden back to camp. So then because otherwise it would probably would have been Pia. So he was able to get the result he wanted by sending Baden back.
Yep. I'll agree with that too, being a great move. All right, so now let's get to our season rankings. And you guys said you were gonna have to push this one up there, but I don't think it would push. I mean, It's
Well,
great.
before we get that, because Australian Survivor and International Survivor is so small, can we add another category of ranking the winners?
Yeah, let's
Oh yeah.
so we want to rank the Australian or the international or winners.
Well, because we've already done four. Well, you have done four Australian versions, so then because it will be too hard to do like actually winners. But because Australian Survivor we're only in season 4,
Yeah,
I feel like it's pretty easy to rank them.
yeah, we can do that as we go to even and you guys weren't here for the first 2 seasons, but yeah, so
I think it's pretty obvious.
yeah, first 4 winners, we have Christy, Jericho, Shane, and Pia. Uh
Shane's at the bottom. I'm saying that right now. Shane is at the bottom. I think that's
yeah, I'd probably agree with Shane being at the bottom. I mean, I think it's between Shane and Christy, and I know
Yeah, I agree.
Bible is a lot better. So like and Shane kind of won more so because Sharn lost.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
I'll give Shane the bottom spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sorry, go.
My ranking would be Pia at the top, Jericho, Christy, Shane.
Yeah. As much as I love Christy in that final tribal and the immunity challenge, I'll give you guys that. But yeah, I think it's what Michael said. Pia, Jericho. Pia, Jericho, Christy, and then Shane. Because Shane's definitely Shane's at the bottom. Yeah. So,
yeah.
But then it's gonna be interesting when we keep going because then it gets really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be really interesting as we go forward starting next week. All right. So then I mean, I really don't think you guys are going to push too hard. This is a really good season of Survivor. Really my only gripes again is like the editing of some of the players, but again, they weren't relevant to the story and they didn't go far in the game, so I can forgive it enough to still like be very cool with putting this high. Of course, like it's a great season, great cast for the most part, and just had me rooting for players, and like that's important in Survivor. So
Let's have you go first, Jake, because I have the rankings. I know Michael's going to put this high, and I'm probably on Michael's team, so I just want to see where Jake is going to put it before we say anything.
well, so I think it should be in the top 15 at least. As we've said, I mean, so do you want me to read off what is in the top 15 right now, or like the next 5 in that?
Yeah. Do the top 15. I think the top 5 are pretty fair, so I'm not going to fight for that.
Okay, so the top 15. Heroes versus Villains, or U.S. Heroes versus Villains at number 1. Second Chances 2. Winners at War 3. Cagayan 4. David versus Goliath 5. Pearl Island 6. Micronesia 7. Caramoan 8. Blood versus Water 9. Philippines 10. Guatemala 11. Marquesas 12. Cook Islands 13. Amazon 14. And Samoa 15.
I know, right, Michael? I know, right? Where the fuck were we during these rankings?
Guatemala?
I'm actually surprised too.
Oh, okay. That one I actually like. I would say Cook Islands and Samoa being in top 15 are where I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, so I will say I don't have Guatemala this high in my own rankings. I think it was ranked high when Kevin and I started doing, like, we did the first 11 seasons and it just never fell down from that. And then the Samoa and like that is not that high for me either. I'd have to look at my own personal rankings, but
so where do you want to put it? And then Michael and I will correct you.
Okay. So if I'm looking at this list, I'm honestly okay. Like I'm okay with moving it past the first 5, like past like Guatemala. I think it should be above those 5. So then it's coming to, well, looking at these other seasons we have here, I think it's a better season than Caramoan. I absolutely think it's better than Caramoan. Okay. So I would love to push it past Caramoan. I do love Philippines though, but I would at least put it, if we put it past Caramoan, I'd put it as the new number 8. So then
Okay, well, damn it, Jake, that's the exact spot I was looking at. Because I don't see it better as Heroes vs. Villains, Second Chances. I think it's better than Winners at War, but I can't argue that one.
Yeah.
Kagian, David versus Goliath, Pearl Islands, and Micronesia. Like I can see the argument for all those being better.
Yeah.
Just because this one ended with two of the favorites going out at 3 and 4. So
right. And like
Yeah.
yeah, I'll let you go, Michael.
So for me, I was kind of just waiting for you guys to see where you put it because I'm a lot higher than that on it. But it comes down to more personal connection with the season rather than like this is objectively the best. But to me, this is my second favorite season of all time after Heroes versus Villains US. So it's the season I go back to the most. It's quite like a comfort season for me that I'll rewatch a lot. So that's where I put it. But I'm more than happy to accept that.
It's whoa, hold on. We're not done yet. So, Michael, we've messaged each other about our favorite Australian seasons. So, do you want to make a deal now to get your season up a little bit higher, and then I can get mine up a little bit higher?
Which one's yours?
Titans versus Rebels.
I'm not going to argue against that one either. So.
Well,
yeah,
but you don't know where though. You don't know where.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty much in agreement that it's a fantastic season. So
Damn, I'm trying to make a deal, man.
Putting it down. You know.
Now I feel like Luke in the Final Four. It's like nobody's talking to me.
I kind of I know that like Jake has a personal connection to Philippines, so it's like it's trying to work things in where unfortunately there's not a great spot to put because of the rankings of other seasons. So I'd be happy with it. I'd personally go a little bit higher, but I'm willing to get on board with that.
I'm trying to think. Oh man.
Because we can also take the average. So if you put it a little higher, then we would just take the average of.
Okay. Well, in that case, I think it's better than David versus Goliath. So that would be the new number 5.
Could we?
I don't think it's better than Pearl Islands and Micronesia, but like it's definitely better than David versus Goliath.
I could see an argument for it being better than David versus Goliath. I mean, if we're talking winners, definitely. But I do like David versus Goliath. God, this is tough. I mean, I'm cool with it being number 8, honestly. But I like if you guys are gonna push it a little bit higher, then I'm not. I can't argue with that. So
okay, here. Oh, sorry, go, Michael.
You know, actually, no, I'm being too nice because you clearly let other people put worse seasons than Philippines above your favorite season.
Yeah.
So
apparently, yeah, I did.
Here, Jake, to put it above David versus Goliath, answer this question. Who did it better with the confidence stick, Dirty Harry or Nick Wilson?
Oh, Dirty Harry. I'm not.
Okay, there we go. So there we go. So now we know David versus Contenders 2 is above David versus Goliath. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, if we wanted to sit down with like Kevin and Sarah and Cameron and stuff and like move seasons around after the fact, we could also do that at some point. But
or we can just put it above David versus Goliath right now.
Well, yeah, I'm saying we can do that right now. I'm saying we can do stuff later, like move Caramoan farther down.
Oh yeah, Caramoan needs to be way down. Before we actually rank this, so I sent this list to Shannon Gus saying, "Hey, I had no part in this except for ranking Champions versus Contenders 2." Her nose for, wow, 46 is so low. I like the top 7, but super surprised Oz 2017 is so low. Fuck Kevin. That was a weird last note, but everything was true except for the fuck Kevin. But yeah, I agree with every note she had. But I know you guys hated 46, so
yeah,
I'm not going to argue.
I will not be giving 46 any praise. Maybe season 2 of Oz could go higher. I think Austin came on for that one, and I guess we just. I don't know if it was just like the out of episodes.
I can also see that because Jericho, like he's not that lovable of a winner, and then I hated Tara, and I'm not a big Michelle fan either. So it's just like that Final Four was rough.
Yeah, I think Austin and I put it that low also because like we didn't like the final 3 as much. Like I think that the end game is what made that season suffer a little bit for us.
Yeah. As soon as Luke went, then that game was.
Yeah.
All right. So we're doing top 5, Michael. Champion
Really?
versus Contenders 2 above David versus Goliath. I think so, yeah.
If you guys are putting it there, it's gonna go there.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Uh,
because Michael sold me because he was like,
I will take it.
he's like, I'm gonna be nice, but then he's like, oh wait, no, other people forced you to do this. And they
Yeah,
argued their
that's
cases.
true.
So
Well,
yeah, I definitely think it's better than David versus Goliath. And then Per Islands, Lil, I did not like Lil. Didn't really like Sanders' first game. Micronesia is the only one I would maybe have a problem with, but
yeah, it's tough. I think they're also the reason Philippines went lower than I would have wanted is because I think people were just like, ooh, Scoopin's on the season, so we have to put it a little lower. So it's like that's what Kevin was saying, and I was like, I get that, so I can't argue against that.
okay. So Jake has just said now on the podcast, Kevin has argued that there's a problematic person you have to rank it low. Yet he's still fighting for Bryan Singer movies to be the top X-Men movies. So boom, contradiction, Kevin. You're too old to realize it.
Oh my God. Oh my God. All
All
right.
right. So top 5 is that where we're in?
Yeah, I'll agree with it. I really do like this season. I think other seasons just would need to be moved around it, but this season itself is really good. I'm agreeing with you guys on that.
We did it, Michael. We did it. Oh my God. Just
Victory.
like Joe Biden. We did it, Joe. We did it.
All right. Okay then. So
yeah.
here,
Follow that up, Jake.
I don't know how. From there, we are now 4 seasons into Australian Survivor, and what better way to move forward next but All Stars? And maybe the season itself isn't as great as it could have been from the way it went, but we have to give credit to, of course, the Golden God for that season, and we'll be excited to talk about it next week and talk about who should have made the cast. Who deserved to make the cast that did, and so yeah, and who should not have made it. So it'll be exciting to talk about All Stars from that perspective. Any other thoughts before we close this out?
I have one more. This wasn't brought up, but the only reason the Golden God David was on Survivor is because his model friend Sarah from Australian 17 told him to play. So I just want to give a shout out to Sarah because it's like
One
great
of my
move. Great move.
all-time Survivor crushes. I love Sarah.
Yeah, we may talk about her a little bit next week of whether she should have been on All Stars, but
100% she should have. Yeah.
Way more than Michelle. I'm already on this boat.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So we'll spend the beginning of next week talking about, yeah, again, the cast and just who should and shouldn't have been there. And yeah, then we'll go from there. But thank you all, and check out the Dirty Harry interview and then this. That is my recommendation. I guess if you made it to the end here, then
it's a little too late, but we'll see. But if you made it to the end, once more, Survivor Vanquish, fans versus favorites mini, coming in middle of August, 3 days. If you make it that far, but can you?
Can you? Yep, that's the question. All right. Well, with that, we will see you all next week for more Golden God on the Tribe of Nerds.